Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to Brunch with Bigfoot, Michigan Rob. Of course, I am your host, BMR. Joining me in Studio B, my buddy Tex from Texas Front Porch. Please subscribe to Texas Front Porch. If not already, if this is your first time here, please subscribe to Bigfoot, Michigan Rob, Texas Front Porch, and the Blondes and the Booze Paranormal Podcast found on YouTube. Please don't forget to leave a thumbs up. Share us out. Make sure you turn on the alert bell and leave a comment if you would. You can find us on iHeartRadio, Spreaker, where all podcasts are found. If you like, you want to help support what we do around here, the Super Chat's open. The Super Chat's a great way to help us do what we do. Also, you can become a BMR pirate. Join today. Join the thousands. Well, not thousands. That are BMR pirates. You get a picture of me with my bandana when you come on in the chat. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, wherever social media is found. And it's all over the place, as you all know. Check us out on our About pages for scheduled events of what we got going on. And getting right into that, you guys, I can't wait. Right around the corner, less than a month away, June 7th and 8th, the Alabama Bigfoot Conference held in Anniston Performing Arts Center. Tickets are $30 online, $35 at the door. You guys, that's relatively inexpensive. Check it out. The speaker lineup, of course, Tex Weston's our master of ceremonies. Speakers, Barton Nunnally, Daryl Denton, the Blondes and the Booze, Jason McLean, Greg Ogles, Martin Groves, and yours truly, BMR. Hope to see you all there. It's brought to you by Sidekicks. Sidekicks Paranormal. June 7th, we have a meet and greet at the Western Sizzler. It's already booked, everybody. However, we will not turn anybody away at the door because we love y'all. And the restaurant's not going to turn you away. That's June 7th. So come on, share some stories, and hang out with the speakers. So that'll be awesome. Don't forget, my book, Bigfoot Michigan Rob Presents True Cryptid Encounters, Book 1. You can find that on Amazon. The link is in my channel. Thank you for those that have purchased it. And, when Amazon comes calling, leave a review. It does help promote sales. It is all analytics these days. And I'm not going to be selfish today because our great guest, Ron Morehead, is joining us. We're going to talk a little bit about his book. This is Ron's newest book, Scientific Answers to Bigfoot Mysteries. It's called Bigfoot Unveiled. Ron Morehead, forward by David Paulides. So the link, all of Ron's links are in this show. So all you need to do anytime during the show or after, click on Ron's link and pulls up all his great work. Fantastic author outside of researcher and speaker. So we're excited to have Ron on. And of course, we have our lineup, Texas Front Porch. Mondays, 8 o'clock to 11, starts out with the Diva Dimension. Tuesdays is Beyond BMR at 9 in the East with myself and Krista. Wednesdays is Inhumanoids with Bart Nunnally, 9 in the East. Thursdays, Brunch with Bigfoot Michigan Rob, 1 o'clock in the East with myself and Tex. Thursday night, 8 in the East on Texas Front Porch is Our Paranormal World with Monica Rollins. Right after that, at 9 is the Blondes and the Booze Paranormal Podcast. Check them out. And if you need more woo with the booze, they're back Friday at 8 in these. Saturday, Truth or Tinfoil. Subscribe to that channel. That's Brandy and Randy. That's Sundays at 6. And Tex does a thing with Daniel Diva called Infamous Minds. If you're into true crime, that's a great show. They come on Sundays at 7. Thanks for everybody for coming on in. Let me get rid of that. And let me, get rid of that. And then I'll pull up my main man from Texas.
Hey.
Hey, Tex, how's it going, my man?
If it was going any better, it wouldn't be legal. Thank you, DJ.
Thanks, DJ. That's awesome. DJ Tyler Radio. Thank you so much, DJ, for your awesome support of the channel with that. So yeah,
I see a lot of porchers in here. And I was telling everybody the other day. I said, if you become a member of the Blondes and Boo Paranormal Podcast, and you become a member of Bigfoot Michigan Rob, and you become a member of Texas Front Porch, you're a paranormal porch pirate.
Wow, that is
You're a
awesome.
paranormal porch pirate.
Paranormal porch pirate. Because yeah, my members are pirates. Yours are porchers, and I think the blondes. Thanks, Julie, for that awesome super sticker. And the blondes are yeah, they're the paranormal. I don't know if they have a tagline for their membership.
I don't either, but I that's what I gave.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Julie, for
Julie.
that awesome super chat. Great start to the show. Um, and so yeah, Tex, before we bring up the awesome guest we have, Ron Morehead, I was just talking to you yesterday, man. I'm so sore today. I tore out and loaded 8 bags of my lawn. I'm expanding my garden. And I gotta tell you, I don't know if old age is setting in, but I woke up this morning, my muscles were aching. I was cramping. I drank about 8 bottles of water this morning. And so if I have to run away for a second, you know what I have to do because I've never drank 8 bottles of water a day. But I'm feeling better. I'm feeling better.
Now, folks, I'm going to tell on him a little bit. We were talking backstage, and I said, "Well, man," I said, do you think you got a little dehydrated?" I said, "Were you drinking plenty of water?" He goes, I drink a water between every beer." So, okay, all
yeah.
right.
Yeah. Well, okay. Thanks for
Water
giving
has
that
beer
away.
has water in it, right?
It has a lot of calories, so that keep your energy going. It's
There
got
you go. There you
carbohydrates.
go. There you
Now
go.
I drink light beer though. I'm getting older, so I got to stay away from the heavy stuff. But yeah, and I started doing this task about 12 o'clock noon, and I got done at 4 o'clock, and it was 76 degrees, which is not hot. It's comfortable, but I got to tell you, yeah, boy, I felt it today. But anyway,
But you know what? Audacious Amber has a good point. Men think that beer is a food group. You're damn right.
yes, it
It is
is.
the top of the food. It is the top of the food triangle that we were taught as kids.
Yeah, I learned that it was a part of the food group many, many moons ago.
You know, if they need to make a high protein beer, that's
Mm,
what they need to do. And you know what? I may have to work on that. I could be a millionaire.
You know what?
Protein
Hey,
beer.
every time you have an idea, I gotta tell you this. I told you a long time ago when I was in high school, you had to call your friends on the phone, right? On the dial up. A lot of people don't
Hmm.
know what that is today, right? And I'm thinking to myself in my head, I'm said, man, we've got to have a handheld device where we can find our friends. And I thought this as a kid. Sure enough, well, my idea was used by Apple and Microsoft, and so I could have been a millionaire today, I guess. But I'm not a computer guy, so. But with that being said,
Get
I'm gonna
Ron up there. I'm tired of
I'm gonna bring up Ron before I start rambling. Hey, Ron.
How do you do?
I got to say one real quick before we get started because I'm looking forward. I've been looking forward to this show, Ron. I look for. I've known you for a few years now, and folks, if you haven't had the pleasure of meeting this young, handsome man that we got on with us today, Mr. Ron Morehead,
Oh,
if you see him at a conference, go see him. He is a wealth of knowledge. He is an absolute pleasure to get to know and one of the nicest guys I've ever met in my life. And Ron, I just want you to know that it's been a pleasure these last few years to, speak to you and spend some time with you and stuff. And even got to sit next to you on the panel at the Dogman Conference. Um, but it was an honor. And I just want to say thanks for everything that you do, man. You've really opened a lot of people's eyes.
well, thanks for saying all that, Tex. I appreciate that very much. Yeah, that's what I'm here for. It's one reason I'm here is to share what I think I know and what I've studied a long time.
Yeah, and my
Okay.
sentiments exactly what Tex. I'm not going to repeat what Tex says, but it's always an honor talking to you, and you always take out your time because you're a busy guy and you don't really have to do this, and I appreciate it because this is your third time on the show. So we've been doing this for 3 years, me and Tex, this show, and yeah, we have you on once a year, and this is especially nice because you just put out your latest book. the Bigfoot Unveiled, which I highly recommend to everybody. You know, Ron, I ordered my book in anticipation of getting it before the show. It's still on its way from Amazon. However, though, I've read this one many a times.
Hmm.
The Quantum Bigfoot by Ron Morehead. Another great. I've read this is my favorite book thus far until I read your other one. So
Now, Ron, correct me if I'm wrong, but when we had to cover your newest book up here, did I see a little resemblance in that picture of
here,
you,
yeah,
Sure,
or
that's
am
what
I
I look
just
like. Just
crazy?
oh, here it is. Yeah,
yeah. Okay,
that's
I'll
me
pull
in the
that
middle.
out. I'll
Is
pull
that a
that
little
out.
family resemblance I see going there?
Well, I guess I got a little bit hairier for that picture.
Yeah,
Sure, before I shaved my face.
yeah. That
Right?
that's a great capture. That's a great
Actually,
cover of a.
that was given to me. That picture was made just for me by Dan Cassidy, who's an artist, and he heard me on a program one night years ago, and drew that and just gave it to me. And I was thinking about when I put it on the cover of the original, which I changed it to Quantum Bigfoot. I changed it to what's on there now. But what I had was I was going to do a lenticular cover, because he drew me a real mean looking one too, where you look at it one way and it looks bad, look at it another way and it looks good. But that was just too expensive to produce, so I didn't use it. But anyway, yeah, he's a great nice thing to do. Great nice thing to do. That's a good way to put it. Anyway,
Yeah, it
I
looks
like it.
fantastic. And a lot of things I wanted to ask, but let's talk about the book a little bit. How for our audience out there, and then everybody listening, everybody in chat, everyone that's going to listen later. I have all of Ron's links. Well, I have one link, it's the master link, and you can pick up all of his recordings with the Sierra Sounds, his books, the latest books. So everybody check it out, and it's very easy. Just click that blue link button in the show. And so let me ask you again. I'm sorry I didn't get the book in time for the show. It's still on. It's coming from Amazon. But here's the thing: I want to ask you. I mentioned the quantum Bigfoot in this. What's the difference? Tell us a little bit about this book. I'm certainly it's got to be a little bit different with Bigfoot Unveiled. What was the methodology behind that, or what spurred on the
Well, I
idea?
just I think I had more answers and more interesting things to answer anyway with science,
Uh
how
huh.
they disappear, how Tesla's 369 manifestation code works, and just how trackways stop, things like that. There is an answer to that stuff, and it's pretty logical, really, when you look into science, and this is all based on science. But I get into levitation. I get into things I didn't get into in the first book, and I mean this the quantum book. And I gotta see. Let me look at my chapters here so I can
Yeah,
recall a
please.
couple. Uh, yeah, the cloaking. That's a big one. I think how they cloak. There's definitely a way that could happen. Light and sound. I got a whole chapter on trees. How important I think trees are to these beings. More reports around tree cutting than anything else, just about.
Yeah,
Uh,
no, it's
especially when they clear cut. Yeah, yeah. I got a
Yeah.
how body and soul, but I get into the etherical part a little bit more. The ethereal part, which is the soul, the spirit, because I have established too. I think in this book, without a doubt, that they have to have a human component to them, and I go through that because all the evidence is out there for that, and I put it together now. I think with this book. And as above, so below. Also, I got a chapter on artificial intelligence, which I think is extremely important. And a subchapter of that is a wolf in sheep's clothing. So, where it's going. And well, as most people know, I was raised religiously, and I'm not religious anymore, but we're definitely spiritual. All of us are. And what happens to that soul, that spirit, that consciousness when this body starts to go away, like it's going away for all of us one day? And that's what goes. That's what you don't see anymore. But you can't see energy, but you can see matter. And I got a whole deal on that, energy and matter. which is important, I think, if you know how it transfers. According to Einstein and the other physicists, energy and matter are interchangeable. And that's the key right there to how they do some of the things they do, why we can't see them. We only see within certain frequencies. Everything is energy, frequency, and vibration. Everything. Everything at the most minute level, we are. Bigfoot is. Everything is. If you can find the frequency of anything, you can change its matter. And that's an Einstein quote. And that's also established by Dr. Paul Dirac, who won the Nobel Prize in 1933 for antimatter. I don't know if you want me to get into all this right now or not, but it's kind of fun and I get carried away. So if I'm
No,
not
well,
on subject
I
matter,
mean, what the nice thing about it is, I mean, we could talk about cloaking, sure, but yeah, these are some things that they're new, new to me for sure. I mean, and you put the time to put it into the book, so I think it's very interesting to me. If you want to, you know, break it apart a little bit, yeah, that's awesome.
well, I do
I
that.
know we don't have 5 hours, but I mean, and well, energy
Well, anyway,
mass conversion, right? I mean, you just said it's frequent, everything's energy, frequency, and matter. And from what I remember from you talking with you a long time ago, that allows them to move in and out of maybe portals or just go travel from point A to point B in seconds, and it could be miles away. Is that kind of what you're talking about here?
yeah, kind of. Uh-huh.
Okay. See,
Yeah, some energy and matter are the same thing, just you don't see the energy. Like some people can see the auras around animals and us, and some people can't. Cat's eyes can see better spectrum than we can see. We see between 430 and 770 terahertz. That's our light's frequency, and everything is frequency. So that's where light stands, and that's been established now. But there's all these other frequencies out there, one way and the other, and I think they can get out of our light's visible perception. And do they travel into another dimension? Well, we can talk about that too. Because I think they've been here a whole lot longer than Homo sapiens. I get into, I think they were created, because I believe in aliens. Does anybody here not believe in aliens? I think they're here. They've been
I
here. They've been here before. Long time ago. Aliens have been coming here for eons, and I think they've manipulated the DNA of different species on this planet. Uh, Primates being one of them, and I think that's where possibly Bigfoot came from, because I've established in my book that they are part human. They have a human component anyway, and that is you get into Dr. Curlin, who did our study in 1978, and said that they have a human vocal mechanism that's way beyond ours. It goes in and out and below and above our average human speech. And it represented an animal. One section of it did an animal over 8 foot tall. So that kind of puts it somewhere. They can talk and mimic like we talk. Uh, then you got Scott Nelson, who established that they have a language by the human definition of language, which is sapient speech, morphine stream of words like I'm speaking now, I hope. And it just goes on from there, because he got that. By the way, he's a 2-time graduate of the Foreign Language Institute of Military and Foreign Languages in Monterey, California. Vetted quite well, 2-time graduate. And not too many people can do what he does. But then after that, you get into Dr. Lieberman, Philip Lieberman, Brown University, who says only humans have the voice mechanism for language. He's a cognitive researcher. He's passed away last year, but his whole career was studying primate languages, and if they have a language. But nothing has language like we do. We're all these words coming out. Dolphins can, they communicate. Everything communicates. Whales communicate. Everything communicates. However, nothing except humans are supposed to communicate like we do. And if these things do that, and they do that, they have to have a human component. So I think my takeaway from that is, before we were Homo sapiens, they were created by possibly alien intervention into the genome of a primate, like I say, and they gave them the attribute for speech. However, they're not all the same. I think a lot of them have, over the eons, diluted down, became more human-like by crossbreeding with indigenous people. And it goes on from there, because I think that's what the Patterson film represents, is one that's been part of human, more human than maybe ape. But anyway,
Wow.
go ahead.
So
Just
this is
interrupt me and ask me questions.
no, that's fascinating. So you think that when we're talking Sasquatch, aka Bigfoot, it's like there's many different species. Some could be originated from the aliens, and as you mentioned, diluted with inbreeding with First Nations or indigenous. So when people think about Bigfoot, it's more than one species or one being, and being might even be the word, because some of these beings are in fact beings with alien descent, and maybe some. I'm not really in the ape camp, where it's just an animal and that's it. I kind of squash that theory. I mean, you helped me squash it some time ago, to be honest. But so just like human beings, there's many varieties, come from different sources, if you will. Does that kind of make
Yeah,
sense?
very good. Hmm. Sure. Different aliens have been on this planet, and different ones have done different things to different species. And in my hybridization book I got here on my last book, it's how the whole Earth has been hybridized. A lot of people, we're hybrids, by the way, uh, created by, well, we're going to get way back into it. I get into the Mesopotamian Sumerian text, cuneiform, and that's supposedly from the Anunnaki. And the Anunnaki are the first beings that were powerful beings from the sky, and they came to Earth and started manipulating the genome of species. Well, that falls right into biblical texts too, which I was raised with a lot of biblical knowledge, and to me it just mirrors Genesis 1 and 2, but except it covers more than 1,000 years. It covers hundreds of thousands of years, and gets into detail about it all. And if you study all the way back into cuneiform text, which is the oldest known written language in existence that we know of, a lot of languages, including Hebrew, have a core in that text. And a lot of it's been manipulated by whoever was in charge of the group at the time, whether it be Constantine in 326 or King James in 1611 with his 36 scholars. Everybody's got their parameter set of what they've been trained with, their brain, and it's only knows what it's been taught and what it's been conditioned for. And I think we've all been conditioned with certain thinking that we have, inside or outside. And it's just family, environment, all that stuff conditions you. And I think you have to get out of that conditioning to understand quantum physics, which has to be real, because it's everything throughout the universe, according to Christopher Brand at West Texas A&M. Everything from the atom through the cosmos works under the laws of quantum physics. However, our third dimensional environment, which we're living in right now, works in 3 dimensions, and there's a lot more according to quantum physics. So understanding what we're all about and what we're here for, and what these other dimensions might be all about, I get more of that in my new book too. It's a lot of fun. I encourage anybody to look into it, because not my book necessarily, but just get Quantum Physics 101, start seeing what's really going on, because everything around you, there's stuff around us right now that we don't see, but it's there. We just don't see energy. And that's where people are seeing ghosts. They're seeing things that just not in our parameters, not in our paradigm, I should say. But our conditioned brain is set to only accept certain things that it's been taught. So you have to get out of that a little bit. And you do that through certain ways too, which is, I think, opening up your pineal gland, which is in your head. I think that's the key to a lot of things. It connects right into the heart's brain. And the heart has a brain, by the way. It's not like the brain up on our heads, but floating around on our shoulders, but it's the gut feeling that you get, how certain things should be maybe that way. And your brain says, no, it should be that way. Well, you end up being guided by your brain, which has been conditioned, instead of your heart, which is the gut feeling. I firmly believe that you got to go by your gut feeling, your heart's brain, because it will lead you into what's right and what's wrong for you. It will also raise your, but you got to have them in coherence. That's the secret of meditation and lining up your chakras and stuff like that. Because once your heart can speak to your brain takes it instead of going off on its own trail. You'll be raising your own personal vibrational frequency, which is very important for us to get out of this 3D environment that we're reproducing all the time. I talk too much sometimes. It's all
Well, one
fun
of the
though. You guys,
reasons, well, you're on the show so we can hear you because you all have great wisdom, and I learn something every time I listen to you at either their conference or on other shows, and of course on this show. So I guess you talked earlier. There's a chapter in your book on the cloaking. So again, that just gets back to what talking about the same things again: energy and frequencies allows them to not be seen, to hide themselves from humans.
as we know, as we've been told, anyway, everything is energy, frequency, and vibration. Everything at the most minute level, and they have a very expansive vocal mechanism, more so than any human on the planet. And that's been studied by several people that just attest to that. So I think that they have some kind of ability, the ones that I dealt with anyway. I'm not sure all of them do. Like I say, some of it diluted down. They may be too human-like to do it anymore. I don't know, but uh, if they can manipulate the frequency and find the frequency, if anything, you can change its matter. So if they've got the frequency within them that will alter their matter into energy only, they would appear to disappear. Hey, that sounds strange. Appear to disappear. Oh well. And they would go out of our perception, which is limited.
I remember when I talked to you, maybe the first time I met you, when you did a show, you said something. I mention you maybe once every 3 or 4 months with something that I remember you told me. I don't know if you remember. You told me, if this is like 30 years ago, let's just say I throw a number on it. If Rob, you'd have came to me and said, you think Bigfoot's a part of the woo, I'd have told you, young man, no, it's not, and turned me around and said, I'll go find somebody else. You would have done it politely, of course, because you're a polite gentleman. But with all your years now, you're on this other side of the train. When did you first discover this and think that, wow, you know what? There's something more to Bigfoot than just the quote unquote flesh and blood ape.
We
You
kind of
once
knew that when we were encountering them in the 70s.
Okay.
We knew there was something different about them because we couldn't trick them. And they weren't like a animal out in the woods, even though we had to put it that way because that's all our brain would allow at that time. And but I look back on the mysteries that were around them and think about the stuff you just put up on the shelf at the time because you couldn't explain it. And Al Berry, who was a master's degree in science that we took in there in 1972, he witnessed some of it too, but he said, "Don't talk about this, or you'll," because he was a classical scientist, and he said, "Because you'll get, or you'll get put down a rabbit hole or something," which I don't care. But quantum science answers the issues that they have in the wood world and the paranormal world. It's not that. Quantum science is a science acknowledged and recognized by scientists all over the world. So if you think about that, it just answers the questions mathematically. You can't see it, like I say, but it answers certain things that you have previously put into the paranormal world or the woo world. And people can call me, and they used to call me a woo wooer, well, you're on the wrong side or something like that. Well, boo hoo. No, I'm I'm a citizen scientist of quantum physics, and really, if people just want to get their head around it a little bit and start looking into that, they might understand where I'm coming from because it does answer those. I mentioned how they disappear, how they cloak a while ago with Dr. Paul Dirac, Einstein, all those people. Not all those people, but most of the physicists who looked into it. Dr. Paul Dirac won the Nobel Prize in 1933 for antimatter. And that was a direct exchange between energy and matter, matter and energy. They go back and forth. However, you got to find the frequency of it to do that, to get it out of the matter into energy. And that was established firmly by the Hadron Collider in 2012 when two particles turned into energy when it collided. So really, that's how it's done. It can be done any other way, as far as I'm concerned. It just they can turn their energy, their matter into energy, and they do that through sound frequency. I think. So there. Answers that. Also, let me add something to that. Look at me.
Yeah.
People say they see their trackways disappear. They stopped. That's why, because their density changes when they turn into energy. They have no more density, so you don't see them. I mean, you might see their trackway just stop, and that happened to me. My daughter had a sighting. We found the trackway, and it was really deep, bipedal. We followed it for a ways, and all of a sudden it just stopped. And you look into to where it could have gone, to the trees, to the boulders, to the bushes, wherever, and you couldn't find any sign of it going anywhere. So that caused me to look into it deeper. But it wasn't a flash of anything that I had where, oh wow, there's quantum physics. No, I've been slowly delving into it and slowly digging up this interesting stuff. Because once you run across these problems, there's not a problem that can't be solved. I've gone through life with that attitude. So you have to solve the problem. You can't just say, well, it's a woo-woo or it's something we don't understand. You can understand it. And it's not that hard, really. I'm not a above normal person. I just dug into history and dug into stuff and studied it because it kind of gets a hold of you once you encounter them. Once you experience the mysteries and the stuff that's gone on, like what's going on with us in the Sierras, 1970s mainly. And last time was in 2011 when I went up there with David Paulides, who wrote the foreword to my book, by the way. And I appreciate that. We became closer. I've known him since 2009, but finally in 2018, he talked me into taking him and his videographer up there to do an interview around the camp where it was. So I did that. About 15 minutes on one of his videos, which is the Missing 411, The Hunted. And even though we don't feel like we were the hunted up there, we may have been stalked. I don't know, but we still don't know their intention totally, other than they weren't trying to eat us or carry us away. So, but me and my wife seen a tube of light float by us about 40 feet away, and we watched it for several seconds till it just went out of sight. And you don't know what to do with that, other than nothing up there really surprises me anymore. Nothing people tell me surprises me. I just listen to it and see if there's a possible explanation I could give them. And I try to do that. But it usually falls into quantum physics, and unless you study it a little bit, it's hard to get your head around it. I asked one time when I was a kid, how far is it to the end of the universe? Well, can anyone answer that? No. You have to conceive it. That's pretty much for quantum physics. When something strange happened, you just have to conceive. If you saw it with your eyes, you have to conceive it. People see things that other people don't see. That's because some people see energy waves, and energy can be a wave or a particle. It depends on when it's collapsed by your eyes. That gets too far.
Well, I got to ask you something, because every once in a while I do ask somebody an out of the box question. It seems kind of strange, and the people that follow me long enough knows that I sometimes do that, right? So it's nothing different or unique. You talk about that these beings can, they utilize the energy, frequency, and vibration for cloaking or for travel. And you said that we're all made of this, but humans can't do that, right? Or can they?
Well, I'm not sure they can't. I mean, we're made in the image of very high frequency beings. Yeah, we can. We just haven't evolved into it, haven't learned how to do that, how to get the right frequency within us to make that happen. These things, some of them anyway, the ones we were dealing with, I think up there were ones that were able to do that on demand, just like walk out and walk in. And once they walk out of our three-dimensional environment, they're not aging like we do. Things change there. And yeah, I think we have the ability to do everything they do. It's just a matter of evolving into it or learning how somehow. And that's what we should seek to do, I think, because once you step up and start reaching for it anyway, you're going to grab a hold of something if you open your mind up.
A lot of
in my
people
opinion.
claim they can. No, and a lot of people suggest that they can astral project. I guess they found the right frequency then, right? Or is that something totally different? Where they
Well,
can
it's just
leave
a
their
frequency.
body
I
and
mean,
travel? Just the
Yeah,
frequencies.
yeah, yeah. That's remote viewing. Yeah. They can do that, and I think we can do that. You can train to do that. I know people that's gone to who've been studying to do that and can do that. And some people are quite accurate with it. It's getting your consciousness out of your embodiment and letting it float somewhere where you want to go to, and identifying it. And there's been people that identify dark side of the moon, all kinds of stuff. Not too many, but some people can astral project like that. And you're right; they have to get on the frequency to do that. And that's how some people say they've been had mind speak with these things. So mind speak is just them getting on your frequency and trying to communicate something to you. They're not supposed to interfere. See, we're special. We are a special species on this planet, made in the image of very high frequential beings, which I think were the Anunnaki. And that's going to go against some religions, but it says, let us make God in our image, and then you get into cuneiform text, you find out the Elohim, which was the word used for God, was always in the plural form. And it's just very interesting when you start studying, looking into it. Uh, yeah. So we can do telekinesis. We can do a lot of things with our consciousness that we just haven't learned how yet. So we got a ways to go. Uh, that's just what I think. And I try to meditate every day if I can, just to get closer, make sure my heart's in coherence with my brain, because your brain will wash you out of anything you want. A lot of times your gut feeling tells you to do one thing, and your brain says, no, there's a bunch more money over there. Let's go to the left.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to learn to obey your good brain, which is your heart.
Well, I see Tex has been muted for a while. I don't know what he's got going on over there, but I got
Yeah.
a question for you that maybe Tex can, you know, join the show. Just kidding. I'm
I had a lot of stuff going on in the
I know
background.
Tex is fine.
I
Hey,
didn't
listen.
want to just let it ramble.
Yeah,
But
I had a,
now that you brought it up,
now
see,
that I open it,
I'm
now
going
that
to
I open the
interrupt you,
box, are
and
you gonna interrupt my question? I'm
yeah,
gonna forget it
well,
now. Go ahead, Tex.
I'll fight you over talking to Ron. So I've
Well,
been nice.
we both can talk and talk. See, Rod, we both, we can ramble ourselves.
That's good.
I try to let the guests
This is
ramble.
a talk show.
It's right, exactly.
It
No
is.
one would come in. We let the guests do 70% of the talking. When we first started, it was me and Tex doing all the talking, and the guests never wanted to come back. Why the hell was I on your show?
Ron, I was kind of talking to you off air about, we're running into so much out in the field, and it's just, honestly, it gets overwhelming sometimes because it feels like we're dealing with more than one phenomenon out there. And
Mm-hmm.
I've seen so much weird stuff, and this has really been on my mind here lately, and I want to get your take on it. Do you think what see, I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this. What are your thoughts on the whole missing time thing? Because it's happened to me, and I've missed several hours at one pop, and it was an active area. We did have, in fact, it was the same place I had my first daylight sighting of a Bigfoot, and but do you think? We had it remote viewed. I had Danielle Diva look into it also, along with Jessica Jones, and they both pretty much told me the same thing, that I was abducted. I don't want to be that guy. I really don't. But
Is there any implants in you?
well, I don't know. I don't know. But do you think that when it comes to the abductions and the missing time and everything, do you think that these things are studying the Bigfoots the same way that they're messing with us? I mean, you think they're abducting them and studying them, or I mean, to me that just kind of makes sense. I mean, To me,
Well, I
they're a
think
more fascinating species than we are, because I know we get a lot of
there's
reports,
definite.
a lot of reports of, I saw a UFO and I saw Bigfoot getting off a UFO, and people equate
Yeah,
it, well, Bigfoot are aliens. And I was kind of
they
thinking,
have
well, what if they're being abducted just like we are?
well, maybe they are, but what reason, what purpose? They, uh, they, I think, have a definite connection with aliens, and and there's a good reason behind that too, because aliens created them, and they're probably trying to see what, and we do too, because aliens created us. You know, uh, people want to say God. Well, what is God? God is a consciousness. So as far as their time goes, we live in our three-dimensional environment in a linear time, which means we think there was a yesterday, but really there is no yesterday because it's gone, right? So it's gone. There's no such thing as yesterday anymore, other than our memories, and we create our future by our memories generally. So there's no future either because tomorrow isn't here, so it's not here, it's not there. It's everything's in the now. And if you've been missing time, something happened to it. Either you went out of our three-dimensional environment, which would mean you went into an alien something or into another dimension. For what reason? Maybe they wanted to put something in you. But strangely enough, most people don't remember anything like that. They just know what they woke up a couple hours later or something, and they have a way of taking that out of your conscious thought. However, it's in there somewhere. Maybe you want to get hypnotized, Dex. see what's going on.
Well,
They might might have took something out of you or put something in you. I have fun with this. I got to tell you, I'm a happy person. I think we all should be happy. One thing you got to watch for when you're out in the woods is your fear. Uh, how far you can go with fear. Fear is your enemy. I talk about this a lot. If you fear something, whatever you're thinking about is what's going to be drawn to you. So that's pretty much established too. So I don't think about the negative so much. I don't. In fact, I don't try thinking about it at all. And if something negative comes up to you, your heart and brain is going to tell you, get away, and don't let the fear tell you. It's your heart's brain, and it'll tell your brain. But that's another reason to be uh, coherent with your outside brain, the one sitting on your shoulders, because that's the one that's going to try to steer you. Because that's the only one that's been taught anything until you start listening to your heart. So fear is very, very important. And I was listening to somebody sent me a little piece of Joe Rogan's show the other night, and he's talking about how those guys couldn't been up there. They'd been so scared. They was talking to these guys like there was nothing going on. Well, he don't know. Joe's a smart guy. He just hasn't looked into it and hasn't never talked to me. And I'm one of the only guys left that's been up there. Me and a couple others, and the rest of us passed away. They're all going to pass away someday. So I think people need to be enlightened a little bit before they start mouthing off. He doesn't know what needs to be known by him before he talks about it. He's just too popular. He's got a big, big audience, and for him to say things like he wants to believe, but he can't. Well, I could get him to believe. He wants to listen to the facts and listen to PhDs and the studies that I've had done on it. And anyway, I shouldn't get off on him, but I just wish that he would get his facts straight before he talks about it. Uh, he's a popular guy with millions of listeners, I should say. So he influences a lot of people, and that's really important. I think people need to get this out. Why we're here, what this really brought me to this Bigfoot encounters, I should say. We had several of them up there, and it brought me to realize who we are as humans and what we're here for. We're here for experiences. We're here to experience this three-dimensional reality that we think we're in, and how we respond to those experiences is more important than the experience itself. Because if we don't learn how to respond to things with love and compassion, we're not going to elevate ourselves or personal vibrational frequency. If we if we treat ourselves like a victim, or like we're everything's against us, or if there wasn't no luck, it wasn't no bad luck, I wouldn't have any luck at all. I've heard that said a lot, but no, they got to get away from that. Everything is supposed to be responded to. Okay, that's all right. I learned from that. My grandson, he said, "Well, we lost that game." I said, "No, you didn't. You learned something from it, didn't you? The football game." And there is no losers. There's just people who won the game, people who learned from the game, and that's why we have to treat ourselves like that. But linear time is a fact. It's what we go through in this three-dimensional environment. Once we step out of it, time don't exist as we perceive it, and that's established too by our astronauts. They have a different time element when they come back. Time changes in space. It's all about gravity.
You mentioned something pretty key, which I still always try to put my finger on, about certain people or researchers that have been doing this for 20, 30, 40 years. And you said something that I responding with learning. How come so many people, and again, you don't have to talk about anybody, and this is your own thoughts. Why do some people refuse to just move forward? I mean, if you've been out in the field 20, 30, 40 years, you find all sorts of things out there around, right? You have to experience different things if you are a staunch researcher. But how come some of these people refuse to think out of the box and think everything is just a flesh and blood creature? I can't put my finger on that.
Until they have a personal experience with something strange, they're not going to step out of that box. They're so conditioned from the time of birth on with certain things, and it's either inside their box or it's outside their box. I'm talking about the square box right up here, it's above our head.
Sure.
Um, they just don't want to delve into it anymore because don't screw them up with facts. They made up their mind. So anyway, I know people that way, very intelligent people, and I love the researchers that I know. I know them a
Yeah.
lot, and I know a lot of them over these years. And I've been around them, and some of them I've talked to, and they got on the edge, they got on the wire, and decided to jump over there with me. But I don't like to be. I my goal is to try to convert those people into looking deeper into how things really work on this planet through the professor at West Texas A&M, Christopher Breyer. And if they understand that Newtonian physics, which is 1687, that's what we're all trained in. Everything goes up, everything material or physical, everything is measurable, predictable. Well, no, everything isn't. Just everything in our third dimensional environment is. Once you know there's other dimensions going on, there's other frequencies going on, there's other things going on, you'll open your mind up a little bit then. And then when you see the things that I've seen, like in Peru and Bolivia and those places, you really got to open your mind up then, because we can't do the stuff that I've seen. And it just, and some of the reports I've got, once people know I got an open mind, they'll tell me their story. And more open than not, or more often than not, I should say, they tell me something strange that happened to them. Well, they want to know the answer. Well, there is an answer, and it usually goes into outside the parameters that they've been trained in. So they have to open their mind up, but that's what will cause them to do it. They got to ask the question. I offered my book, quantum book, to all the physicists I knew. It was on my 50-member list that I was part of. Offered them a free download to it. I don't know that any of them took it, and they just won't delve into that because they've dug their heels in with this flesh and blood only thing. And once you dig your heels in, then you turn around and take a foot out, you're going to get laughed at by your academic colleagues. You can't tackle this subject without losing some credibility with academia. Al Berry was academia, but he knew something else was going on up there, but he couldn't. He did mention some of it in the book he wrote with Ann Slade, Bigfoot. First 3 chapters was dedicated to our story up there, and he wrote that in the late 70s, I think, and it's out of print. It's been out of print for a long time, but it's interesting because he mentioned about these orb lights that were following the Johnsons around up there, and Johnson brothers are the ones who started habituating that camp in 1958 and been going up there every year. So he didn't know where to put that stuff, but like all of us, you just kind of put it up on the shelf because you think it's got to be some kind of ape out there that hasn't been identified. But how are they doing what they're doing? How's that happening? Or is it them that's doing it? Because I did see a UFO up there once, and it got lost behind the trees. But this was when the Bigfoot stuff was happening, and it was just something I put on the shelf. But it was just a big blue ball of light moving slowly down from the sky, and lost it behind the trees. Uh, Other mysteries happened up there. When we thought our camp was being tore apart, and I mean, you look outside and nothing's changed later. How does that happen? People suggest, well, maybe they hypnotized. Or they hypnotized all of us inside there, or did they actually make those sounds with their advanced vocal mechanism, which they can mimic just about anything with that kind of vocal mechanism. So what gives them away generally is their amplitude, very, very loud. They're very heavy beasts because they're most muscular. They leave deep footprints, and it just there's a lot going on with them. A lot going on in this whole Earth that we don't understand yet that we're working at. But I think to look at it, you really got to see how everything works. I keep going back to that, but most people don't want to look any further than what they're comfortable with. So there.
Well, and
Long answer
I
to a
think
short question.
I think the last part of what you said is very telling. They don't want to get out of their box or anything they're uncomfortable with, because I think a lot of people, and I can't blame them, they don't want to know something's out there, because if they did, it would shatter their reality and they would never be able to go out there again. And I can't blame them for that. I mean, fear is something that people deal with differently, and but it's a shame, because if they would open their eyes and realize there's more out there, I think after the initial shock they would appreciate what's out there, because it's not all scary monsters and everything. There's a lot to appreciate out there, you know. But
Well, remembering who you are. Yeah.
yeah,
Remembering who you are on this planet, we have dominion. You can call them off. You can dictate. Just
right,
don't let your fear do it. Let your consciousness do it. One of the guys, he wouldn't go back up there. He never did spend the night up there again. He got scared off the first time he heard him, and he was very religious, which we were all going to church at the time. We were all spiritual, which we all still are spiritual. But he just couldn't put that in his box. I mean, couldn't get it out of his box. Let's put it that way.
yeah,
He'd been
yeah.
trained in, no, giants and Nephilim, they're all gone, But are they? Or did they
I
go
was going to ask you
underground?
that. Yeah, Ron, I was going to ask you. A lot of people maybe have the fear factor. I've talked to a lot of people over the years, and a lot of people think that Bigfoot's nothing more than a demon, or it's nothing more than an evil spirit, the Nephilim, if it will. What? I mean, how do you answer that to these people?
Well, truth is, we don't really know for sure, because I think some of them are good and some of them are bad. So it depends on what you're running into. That's why your heart brain is so important to listen to. Yeah, there are bad ones out there. I mean, I think Tex and I was at the Dogman conference here a couple months ago, and these dogmen seem to be very aggressive, responsible for a lot of bad things that happen in the LBL down there. And I hear a lot of them up in Canada or up there too. The whole clan of them up there, but they're not aggressive. So what are they doing, and what are they here for? That's a good question. But I think we're going to be inundated with a lot more of this stuff as we keep talking about it like this. But again,
And again, it happens.
so if you concentrate on the negative, you're going to pull the negative into you. Concentrate on the positive, and if a negative comes to you, your heart's going to tell you, get the hell out of there. And that happens to people too. But keep a good frame of mind, a good happy attitude, and that keeps your vibration high. And chances are you're not going to have problems unless it's a good problem.
You blanked out a little bit there, and we didn't catch a couple seconds, but I think Tex and I got the gist of that. So I guess a lot of too, maybe it's ourselves, right, in our mind. We can probably I think people can manifest things when they go into the forest or they go out exploring. If you're thinking something's evil, maybe evil will come upon you. Think something's happy or not anything to worry about, that's what you see. I think a lot of us we trick our minds in a lot of things. You know, a lot of people say that, how do I know I'm really experiencing a Bigfoot or this or that? Because a lot of people suggest they manifest this and they're so intent on seeing a Bigfoot that it clouds their judgment, and a lot of these other nefarious energies overtake their conscious mind.
You find what you look for. That's simple. And Abraham Lincoln said that. I think a lot of that's not my saying. That's just what is. You find what you look for. If you keep looking for something, your brain's going to find it, and, uh, and you're going to manifest a bear into a Bigfoot, or a Bigfoot into a bear, or something like that's going to happen, and your brain's going to talk you out of what you know you saw, uh, possibly, if you let it. But yeah, people do manifest things with their brain, and that's what most scientists say has happened with all these Bigfoot sightings that have been reported. Well, people just manifested it. They imagined it was really a bear, and possibly it was, but what if it wasn't?
You know, with all the
Anyway,
reports out there
there.
too. I mean, and again, though, I mean, it's a great point because a lot of researchers, a lot of people, they rely on reports with a certain websites, certain organizations, which makes it kind of hard because everyone said they saw a Bigfoot, but maybe it was a bear, right? Because I'm sure I don't even know how many of the reports are actual 100%. It could have been something that they thought they saw and was something else, right? A grizzly bear, which I don't really buy because I don't think a grizzly bear walks with a 6 foot stride. I mean, it's, but other reports, people are just misidentifying things.
Right. Yeah, that happens quite often, I imagine, because all the reports can't be real, but uh, what if some of them are? And some of them are, in my opinion. There's a lady on Wes Germer's show, the Sasquatch Chronicles, in episode 515. Not allowed to talk about that.
Yeah.
I interviewed her. She's from England, and she was over here on business, and she was sitting on the rocks. Bigfoot, no, nothing like that ever entered her mind. She was in business trip. She got off work, went over there to catch a picture of the sun going down on the rocks on the ocean shores of California. She's sitting on the rocks over there, and a Bigfoot, 5 of them, come walking by on the sand. Male, 2 females, and 2 adolescents. And I interviewed her personally, by the way, and she opened up to me a lot. She went out. The big male was out in the water pulling out seaweed and tossing it back to the 2 females who were doing something with it. She didn't know what, but she just was flabbergasted. She said, "I got to get a picture of this. No one's going to believe this." And she pulled the lens cover off of her camera, and it fell on the rocks. And the big male heard that, and he started screaming at her and coming towards her. And she says the females stopped him, and they were chattering back and forth, and he kept screaming at her. She said she felt like she was going to die because the male was coming for her, and she fainted at that time. And she ended up at the base of her car up on a hill there where her car was parked, and very credible. She was a linguist. She was a teacher. This happened to her years ago, but she turned it in to the police when she got back to her hotel because she was kind of tattered. Her coat was and all. So anyway, it was very credible. She sounded extremely credible. So I believe her. Uh, there's a there's a reason they pick up seaweeds. There's a medicinal purpose for that. I don't. Anyway, it goes on from there. But you can listen to the whole episode from her on Sasquatch Chronicles, episode 515, and it's quite compelling. And she sent me her credentials. She sent me a picture. She saw him up close. She said that male was when he would scream at her, his neck would blow out. I mean, just puff up, which tells me they have air sacs, and that's kind of common with primates. We have, according to Meldrum, uh, remnants of air sacs within us because I don't know, I've never saw those, but a lot of primates have those. The howler monkey does. That's how they scream so loud. These things have that, and she said the one she saw does have that. And she actually said that she saw its tongue. It had a mark on its tongue too, which was interesting. I don't know what that was all about, but she drew me a picture of it all, and that was very interesting. Very interesting. So that was real. I think there's a lot of real ones out there. In fact, more so than you can imagine. But the late Peter Byrne, who just interviewed some loggers up in Oregon who had a Bigfoot encounter, and they laughed at me every time he'd talk about it, or they was no, nothing like that could be. Well, they were clear cutting some timber, and they saw this Bigfoot walking down this road toward them, tromping down through there, and they all were believers after that. You would be, wouldn't you, if you saw something like that? And it walked off, but it was disturbed at them for destroying the forest. And a lot of people have issues when these things are cutting trees. I was up in Portlock, Alaska, with this Discovery Bigfoot channel on the travel. Anyway, they flew me up there to go into the Portlock. And
Right. I was going to ask you about that.
I really want to go up there and spend about 2 or 3 days out in there.
Well, anyway, I flew over in the helicopter before we landed, and after we took off too, and I noticed it was they'd clear cut it years ago, a long time ago. You could see the new growth from the old growth, and really over timbered acres and acres. And from the pictures I saw, which no one's around to really tell you about it because it happened in late 40s, early 50s, but they were overfishing it too. And my advice to them, if they wanted to take it, I said, you just got to respect property. You got to respect this earth, and don't overdo things, because I think you were probably messing into their territory, their habituation area, and where they live with the timbering. And if you want to have they want to reestablish the Portlock. They want to reestablish their land there with the fishing. So if you want to do that, you really got to respect the property. They were also mining back there. So there's been a lot going on there that I think would just piss these things off. And they probably would show themselves out of the wood and scream at them, and somebody's going to shoot at them, in my opinion. That's what people do. They shoot at things they don't understand, and shoot at things. They just try to kill things they don't. Yeah.
That's what worries. That's one thing that worries. I'm going to say this real quick, and unfortunately I gotta go. I've got a doctor's appointment. But unfortunately, that's one of the things that worries me. If we ever do have disclosure, and I think we're going to. I don't know why I think that, but I just feel that we will. But somebody's going to want to put a head on the wall, and that bothers me.
Well,
Ron, I just want to say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just want to say thank you for coming on, and it's really good to talk to you again, brother. And I'm looking forward to seeing you again, man.
Well,
and
thank you, Dex. I apologize for interrupting you.
No, you could.
But yeah, I think these things. Well, they've a lot of people claim they've shot them. Fred Beck being one of them in Mount St. Helens, and they never could find the body, but he swears up and down he hit it straight on. And you got the Daniel Boone story. That's a good one. Maybe his son shot it, but it didn't kill it. Daniel Boone found his son because they were hunting together and shot it in the head, and that killed it. And so I suggest if anyone's going to shoot at these things, they feel threatened, only if they feel threatened, because don't shoot what you don't understand. We're a warring species, and that's just what we want to do, things we don't understand all over the earth. And that's because of who's in charge of this earth at the time. It's the negativity. And we got to raise the vibrational frequency of people to overcome that. And we're going to do that if we all start thinking more of love and compassion, see the positive, don't look for things you don't want to see. And good luck at your appointment, Tex, and thank you for your questions.
Thank you. Yeah, it's just a checkup, so But we'll see y'all later, Ron. Looking forward to talking to you and seeing you again, brother. You take care and God bless, man.
Thanks, Tex.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Wow. I tell you, yeah, that was Well, Tex, doing his old checkup, so we'll talk to Tex a little later. Thanks. And getting back to what you're just talking about, though, about the shooting, if people claimed to have shot and killed a Bigfoot or what have you, if you subscribe to the theory that the Bigfoot is socialized, they travel with in a clan or family group, doesn't it? It makes me wonder about some of these people that make these claims. I've always heard how true it is. I don't know, but don't you think if somebody were to shoot at a Bigfoot, don't you think there's more than one around, and don't you think that they would act aggressively at you? And don't you think that they would? Don't you think you wouldn't make it out of the woods alive if you shot one of their family members?
Well, Fred Beck, in his story, said he followed one tracks before he shot it, sometime before that. And he said would have had to jump 160 feet to have not left another track. From there on, he thought they were paranormal. When he shot one, he said it fell off a cliff, and he claimed he didn't miss it. It just fell off. Well, but they didn't find the body when they went down there. So did the other ones take it? And if so, why didn't they show aggression? Well, they did. They threw rocks at the cabin, stuff like that. So they were a little ticked off at that. But what happened to the body? Did they bury it themselves? What did they do? Because when they're in a 3D environment like they are when you see them, they're subject to our rules. They're subject to our laws, our three-dimensional laws, which means they can be shot, they have to eat, they poop, they procreate. They do everything we can do, but they like it here, just like aliens like it here. We're the gem, this planet of the solar system. Everybody wants to be here. We got plenty of water, we got plenty of forest. But yeah, what happens? Like Fred Beck, that story. You got
Was that with the Ape Canyon? Or Ape Canyon is a different one, right?
No,
was
that's
that
Ape Canyon. Yeah,
it is Ape Canyon? Yeah.
You might be thinking of Albert Osman, who same year he was supposedly abducted, went up in Toba, Canada.
Yeah,
And
wasn't
he said he was held captive. He was carried on a sleeping bag for hours into this about 10-acre bowl-looking place in the mountains. He said there was a male who carried him there, and there was a female and two adolescents. He wasn't sure why he was taken there, but they weren't showing aggression towards him, other than they wouldn't let him go. And he got one sick, the big male, and ended up escaping. But he was there for 6 days watching them. He said they were chattering amongst themselves. That's written in John Green's book, Apes Among Us.
Yeah.
And John Green, you could never convince him he was anything other than an ape out there. But still, what talks? I don't think we didn't know how important language was at the time. But language like we have, chattering language, very, very important to humanity, who we are. And so anyway, did I answer your question?
Well, no, I just asked about the Ape. I remember the Ape Canyon. I was going to ask you, the Ape Canyon. It sounded familiar, like the Ape Canyon, where they said, I remember reading on that. I forgot where I read it. It might have been that book where they were hairy men, but they said they looked like more like apes, right? And they were. But then again, I'm thinking to myself, the actions that these apes towards the cabin was unlike a gorilla or an ape in the forest. I mean, they were literally. They acted more human-like to me, is what I'm saying, which you talked about earlier, where you think that Sasquatch is more human-like than anything else with all these some of them.
Yeah, I'm not sure what we were dealing with in the Sierra camp. They had a Bigfoot, they had a big voice, and they were huge.
Yeah.
The trackways were different. I mean, as far as the Patterson track looks more human-like. That's why I think it's been diluted down from crossbreeding. Our tracks are more splayed. They're bigger, and they just they had the attribute of language, which I don't know that Patterson did. But if they've been diluted down, you don't know what they're going to end up with being like. I think most people are seeing those though because they've been here for so very, very long. They have been, and native lore goes way back into them taking their women and
so I find it really interesting today that you talked about, with these Sasquatch, if you will just use Sasquatch, is like crossbreeds of everything. Native Americans, aliens, perhaps animal.
Well, I think there's a hybridization program going on from just about all species or a type or a shadow of everything that probably exists in the universe. We're learning how
Yeah.
to work with them, how to show how important they are. Well, I'm not a tree hugger, but I do appreciate
Yeah.
life now. I don't hunt anymore. I don't kill things just for the fun of it. Now, if I need to eat, I
Right.
would because I can. However, some people just hunt for the fun of it to hang something up on their wall and don't eat the meat. And I disagree with that, really.
Yeah, and yeah,
And I
that's
stopped
not.
hunting when the last deer I shot, I was there when its eyes glazed over and it just left because something leaves you. Your theoretical part, because we're all energy, and that energy leaves you when this body passes away.
Hmm.
So
You
anyway,
know,
you hear all these reports about multiple lives, and if you don't learn it in this lifetime, you got to learn it somewhere sooner or later.
yeah, it's funny you bring up hunting because my brother, I had a Bigfoot experience in 2018, and my brother knows I do a show, and I'm I guess an enthusiast. I'm out in the woods, but not as much as I'd like to. But so my brother, so he watches the show. I've told him about my account. He totally believes me. He's a fan of what I do. But he was like, but he's been a hunter for 25 years, and he again, but he just hunts and eats. He cleans it. He does everything and eats the meat. He's not a doesn't do it for sport. He does it. He feeds himself, his family, what have you. And they like deer. So, and believe me, with a billion deer in Michigan, we need hunters to take them down and eat them, right? So we got him on the freeway, Ron. You can run down they cross the freeway, and I know it's not unique to Michigan, but it's like wow, there's just so many. You can spot them on the
Uh,
freeways. So, so yeah, so he knows that I talk Bigfoot, and I have a lot of good, cool guests on, such as yourself. So he told me this story, and he called me. He was really excited. He called me. How he got a hold of me out in the middle of the woods, I don't know. It was in Michigan, about 100 miles north of here. And he says, Rob, the weirdest thing just happened to me. He goes, I was up in my tree stand, lined up a deer, a buck, shot it, a sizable buck. And he knows he hit it. He can see, and he takes off. So my brother, again, this is like 2 years ago. Now he's been hunting for 20, 25 years, so very experienced at hunting and tracking. And he follows this deer. He picks up the trail, finds the blood. He's following. He sees the prints, and then he gets down to like kind of an open meadow. And again, he clearly sees the blood, the tracks, and there's this big tree. Surrounding this tree is a bunch of other trees, not quite as big. And then at the base of this wide tree is where the blood trail stops. And then he looks down and he sees actually an imprint of a deer, of like the deer's body. He can make out that the deer had fell there, but he's looking around. He doesn't see the deer. He doesn't know. I mean, and then he's looking around for other hunters. He goes, but first of all, he's thinking somebody took my deer, but then there was no tracks. There was no sign of any other human being around. And he's looking around, and and he can't figure out where the deer was because it stops right at this tree. So he looks at the base of this tree and he starts following up with his eyes and up the tree about 12, 14 feet where some branches started coming out. He sees that there was blood smeared up this tree till it hit the bottom of the branches, but that was it. Then it was gone. He goes, "Do you think like the Bigfoot grabbed it, went up the tree with it, and swaying from tree to tree?" And again, I'm thinking, I don't think that if depending on the size of the Bigfoot, I don't think they're not like monkeys. They don't swing around. I don't think from tree to tree, right? I mean, they would break the branches. So that was my first thought was I don't know, but I tell you what, I wouldn't doubt if it was something. So it was always found that strange that he tracked the deer to the base of the tree and sees the smear marks up this tree, and it stops. I wish I was there. He sent me some pictures, and these trees are kind of spaced out around. I don't think it jumped from tree to tree. So he's very intrigued, and I'm intrigued. Now, what your thoughts is with that? Because again, where did he go?
Right. The first thing I would ask is there any mountain lions in the area that can pull a deer up a tree? They're pretty strong.
No, they can,
'Cause
and no, not well. I think where we hunt here in Michigan, where we live, and where he hunts at, no, it's further north. Our mountain lions here, are like in the Upper Peninsula, and we're in Upper Lower Michigan. Now, not ruling that out though, right?
I don't know what could have done that if it wasn't something massive and something that could disappear.
But like you say though, early in the show, energy and frequency vibration, maybe it's skedaddle, maybe it was a Bigfoot, and it just kind of converted the mass and energy and just transported.
Well, or maybe the brain also connected to entangle his brain to not see it. That's possible too, because if he was looking up there and there was a Bigfoot up there, because he would have seen the deer or the Bigfoot or both. Maybe I'm just suggesting something here that.
No, sure. No, I'm always open to that because I have no answers for him.
Well, entangle his brain to not see it, just because they can do that. I think I've had some strange things happen to me.
And then, of course, entangle. Go ahead.
Well, I'm just going to say, I've been in the woods up there, and I've been right outside our shelter when one of these Bigfoots was mouthing off out there. Warren Johnson and I thought we'd jump out there through the doorway and see it run away, and we started walking up. I write about this in my Voices of Wilderness book, but walked up just probably 15 feet from the tree, and we both just got stopped, and it didn't run away, whatever was behind that tree, huge tree. And he said, I can't move any further. It's like a force field, I say, because we could move backwards, but we couldn't go forward. I brought that up to a scientist later. He says he thought it was our fear that kept us from going in front. I said, no, we weren't afraid then because they hadn't eaten us. They hadn't tried to carry us away. We were just wanting to see one and better. And anyway, he said, well, it had to be pheromones or infrasound because they can affect you. So I'm saying now that I've got into quantum physics and quantum entanglement that maybe they can cause your brain or your outside brain to not interpret what you think you're seeing. So that's a possibility. It's a theory, but if it wasn't there and the blood trail went there, or something made it happen. And, if you don't have any other explanation, you might as well take that one.
Well, I appreciate it because again, thank you for that. But it's like it still is kind of amazing. But then I was just thinking that maybe it's just like again referring back to the quantum thing. Quantum physics or mechanics, maybe that was a part of that, because I also talked to a guy that was, again, he was hunting, and he sees what he alleges it's a Bigfoot, and it came out and it had a deer. Once again, a deer story, had a deer in its arms. Okay, and apparently he broke the deer's neck. It appeared the deer didn't seem to be moving because he's seen this through his binoculars on his telescope binoculars. And so he's with a friend, and the friend says, you got a film out there. And the guy's seen this, and the guy says he's filming this, right? But then all of a sudden, they got excited. When they were done filming, they went back to camp to hurry up and look at their film. And they both thought that they saw apparently an alleged Bigfoot and a deer, again, held by the Bigfoot. And they looked, and Ron, when they went back, this is what they told me. Now, when they went back and looked at their film, there was no Bigfoot there, but what they did see was the deer kind of suspended. I've heard a lot of odd stories like that where, and again, and Bigfoot can screw up your electronics, and as you said, they have the ability to blur themselves out from especially electronics. So maybe it's again another one of those.
Right. Yeah, I've heard a lot of stories like that. They're just crazy. Can't explain them really, other than something's going on. If they saw it with their own eyes, and yet the camera didn't pick it up, but it did pick up the deer. The camera did, right?
Yes, this was what he
Yeah.
told me, and of course he didn't have the film to send me. So I mean, again, I know walking people's shoes, so I don't judge anybody. But we've heard all sorts of stories like that, anyways, which I think is
Right.
good for data, and we roll with it, and we recognize, and we try to decipher what we think is right or not,
You know,
because
yeah. Nowadays,
I'm not
nothing surprises me. I don't
either.
get surprised very easy.
Ron, I got to ask you for a few minutes before we have to shut it down. I did want to ask you one thing because I've been very familiar. I got a friend in Portlock, Alaska. We just became friends recently, and I know that you were on the show, as you mentioned earlier, the Alaskan killer Bigfoot. That was in Portlock, correct?
Right.
Okay, I had to, and the
Right. Nobody
helicopter,
lives there that I know of.
right?
It's
So, do you believe
abandoned.
that's? Do you? What's your take on that story? That whole story about how the village was eradicated by Bigfoot, and now it's
I believe
haunted, I
it. I
guess.
mean, I believe it. I was there and stayed there a couple of days, and it just very unusual area. I do feel like they have something there, but a lot of it's based on what I saw. I think they were overdoing the area. They wasn't showing the respect for the land, the property, and they were invading these beings, whatever they are.
Mm.
Pardon me.
Bless.
Uh, so yeah, I think it's real. I mean, I don't say that about too many places I've been, but I think this is real. The production crew was real. They weren't trying to manufacture anything, and that's unusual. Usually, production crews are out
Yeah.
after a certain narrative, and that's what they stick with. They have to cut half your stuff out just to say that. Well, they do, but this production crew was good and very well funded. They had a lot of equipment there and hauled it all in by barge, and I mean generators for the yurts they set up, and just although you thought we stayed in a little tent, we didn't stay in that little tent. uh,
Yeah.
but that was yeah, there's something going on there. I
No,
think.
well, I mean, I remember in that there was they took you to that enchanted tree. I don't know if that's the appropriate
Oh
term.
yeah.
And I got to ask you, when you were there, we all have we all have our senses, right? Our intuition. A lot of people say they have this, they feel that they're being watched and all these things. I got to ask you this then. When you were there, did you get any out of ordinary feelings in your gut or in your head about the place other than that made it different to you? Where you just had that gut feeling, you know what? There's something different about this place?
I had that. Yeah. And when they blasted my sounds that night, I suggested maybe you don't want to do that because some people who do that have, I'd call them in. You don't know what the sounds represent. You know, it might be a conflict of some type or something. Like one guy said he blasted my sounds. One of them started crashing through the forest and tearing down trees. He saw it and it was charging towards him. He learned how to walk on water then. And just uh, not up there, but I mean somewhere else. Uh, yeah, there was a response to that, and but again, had it jumped out of the trees or anything like that, the guy with the gun would have shot it. I feel like he would have because it's scary. I mean, and they're all based on fear. You know, again, you shoot what you don't understand. That's the idea behind a lot of this stuff. And yeah, Portlock's real. And they asked me if I'd go back if it could get production funds to do it again. But they spent a couple $1,000,000 on that, I'm sure, to do all the stuff they did.
Well, I'm sure that
Fly me.
helicopter I'm sure that helicopter trip was, not cheap.
Well, no, and I wasn't the only one getting a helicopter ride either.
Right now, yeah. How long really quick before we have to, get out of here, how long does it take to shoot something like that real briefly for the
Oh,
entire
they were
time
there
we're
for a
there?
month. They were there for a
And you were
month. I
there
wasn't.
for what, a day?
Oh, a couple days.
You were
Yeah, I
there a
spent
couple
2
days?
nights there, I think. Went out on the 3rd day, I think.
Yeah.
I spent a couple nights there.
It
And,
is it is a
it's yeah, it's remote, and yeah, it's an area where I think if they could go back there, that's what they could do. And I said, well, come back here without the filming crew. Just come back here, not trying to expose them or nothing. Just sit here for as long as you can without and try to control your fear. And if they come in and tear your arms off, you know it's not safe. If
Yep.
you get out of here, well, maybe you can rehabituate it.
Yep.
Well, that was a little bit off, but
No,
you don't
it's
know.
I
You just gotta.
no, no, you don't know. No, we got a few minutes yet before we have to tie it up. Why don't you tell everybody where they can find you, and you got any places, any venues you're going to be participating in here coming up shortly?
Yeah, I do. I got New Jersey coming up here in a couple weeks. Then after that, I go to oh gosh, I forgot now. I got on my calendar here somewhere. I'm going to California in June, and then I got a couple more after that. So I just stay as busy as I want to. You know, I don't mind going to these places. I love to go. I just don't like. Excuse me. I love to be there. I don't love to go. Traveling is a bit of a hassle nowadays. I used to have my own
Yeah.
airplane. I could fly to these places, you know, and that was a lot easier. I could leave my hometown and fly right into the town I want to be in. And,
Well, I got to tell you what, to save money, I'm flying to Alabama. I'm flying to St. Louis, and I'm hooking up with Krista from Blondes and Booze, and we're driving from her place to Bart Nunnally's place to Alabama. So yeah, a 2 day. I'm going to spend more time on the road than I am at the actual conference. Well, I got to tell
well,
you,
say
it
hello.
cost me like $300 to fly to St. Louis. It was like $800 they want to charge me to fly to Alabama, the big airport out there. I said, you know what?
Uh-huh.
I'll travel. I'll fly. I'll cut the price in half.
Yeah.
But for everybody, this is Ron's newest book, Scientific Answers to Bigfoot Mysteries. Is Bigfoot Unveiled by Ron Morehead. David Pilates wrote the foreword, and everybody, I do have the link to Ron's books in this show and on the channel. So go check out if you're interested. Please just go click Ron's link, and it'll take you to all of his books, not just that one. And of course, I got this one. I got Ron's other book order, but this is a fantastic book for those that don't have this in their collection. It talks about a lot of what Ron talked about today, and of course, he talked about his latest book. Everyone, go buy it. Mine's coming. And before we cut you loose, I do want to thank a couple people. Once I get over this section, bear with me. I want to thank Rich Sykes, became a new BMR pirate. He joined up today. DJ Tyler Radio and Julia for your awesome super stickers towards the show. I do appreciate that greatly. Thanks ever so much. Don't forget to subscribe to Bigfoot Mystery Rob on YouTube if you're new here. The Blondes and the Booze Paranormal Podcast, and of course Texas Front Porch. Ron, any parting thoughts? And I'll let you get out of here.
I'll say hello to Barton and Martin Grove's going to be there too, I think. And I just saw him in Kentucky last weekend. And yeah, say hello to those guys for me. Good friends of mine. They've taken me out in the LBL a couple times, and
In fact, I
great
seen
people.
you. Yeah, I seen you. Barton had
Daryl
did a
Denton. Yeah.
video, and Daryl Denton and Barton. I think. Yeah, you guys were driving. I think in the LBL. I saw that. I saw the video. It was pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, they're fun guys.
but,
And
yeah, and I'll be meeting up with them all in Georgia or in Alabama for the conference, which will be nice. So,
yeah.
be a good time.
Well, ronmorehead.com is my main website, and they can order all the books download or paperback. CDs also. I've got 2 CDs with the narration and the sounds in them. And my first book, Voices in Wilderness, comes with a download link that you can tag into to get the sound that I'm talking about when I get to the context of the sound. It's my chronicle of doing this, my first book that I wrote. So that'll hook everybody up with either a download or a paperback they wanted.
Yeah. Well, that's very easy to remember, and even easier, I do have it in the link to this show as well for Ron. I want to thank you once again for coming on. It's always a pleasure. I always learn so much when you come on, and I do mean that, not just because you're a guest. I really, you're one of my go-tos.
Oh,
So when it comes to all this, because
well,
I'm
thank
kind
you.
of like you. I got an open mind to all this, and I really appreciate all your work.
Well, thank you for that. I think people have to get that, understand who you are as a human being made in the image of something very high frequential, and that's what we're headed for. That's what the manifestation goes about, which I write about in my book too, 3, 6, and 9. Tesla's to understand the universe, know the significance of 3, 6, and 9. We live in the third dimension.
Yeah, Tesla. I mean, that's another thing we even touched on Tesla. Well, that'll be for another time, right? So I appreciate you, Ron. So thanks
All
to
right.
everybody for
Thank you.
coming on in. If you're new, please subscribe. Check out Ron's books. Check him out if he's in a town near you, because he's a great speaker, a wealth of knowledge.
Appreciate it, Rob.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for coming on. And with that being said, until
You
next
bet.
time,
Take
BMR
care.
and for Ron, we're out. Bye bye.
There you go.